So I have just few slides to start the discussion and mostly focus on definitely the HDF Group dreams. It's maintainability and sustainability of HDF software. But before we can, leave our dreams and make them to come through, we really live through many nightmares. And this is how I sometimes feel when we're working on major releases like this team on the clinging to the crew, clinging to the wreckage of the ship, surviving 8 waves of development, seeing sun, knowing that shore is somewhere very, very close, and only know that there is 9th wave coming, and in our cases, our merge from post-open range that Sven mentioned and was mentioned in the first 2 talks of the day. Morning after is good, ship is sane, everything is fine, only to really realize and come back to reality of software development. As you see here, this is new features merges, and watch for the last standing guy that is running, everything maybe hope. Okay. So why it's so difficult? We showed you the picture, right? It's nice architecture. We have HDF application that uses HDF APIs, a lot of them, a lot of tunable features and so on. Can talk to any storage. What's wrong with this picture? And of course, the devil is in details. So if we look closely, and this slide is not for you to read, at HDF APIs, you know how many of them are and how difficult it is now to find anything, especially for new users who didn't follow the development of HDF5. How do I know that this feature even exists? And we have, ironically, have the same conversations among us. Do you remember we had this API? No, I don't remember. I never worked on it. No, your name is on RFC and RFC is published. You definitely work on this API and so on. So if you look at the native wall or library per se, you will see this is courtesy of John Mazer, our chief architect, who created this dependency, package dependency graph when he was trying to use it with some applications. And the nodes that you may see here represent very nice, structured, very well maintained packages, but interdependencies. If we just zoom to this place, you can see how many, what is going on. It is really very hard for any new developer, any community developer to understand and contribute. So what is our dream is really to make HDF5 maintainable. And the first thing, it should be well documented, and documentation should be complete, searchable. It should be practical, that we're not arguing, does this API that does this exist? There should be some approach to present all functionality in very methodical, but also practical way, so it can be easily to find, and have some recipes for how do I do things in HDF5. And documentation should exist for all audiences, for our users, for developers, for maintainers, and for decision makers. And it also will help to learn the library, understand it, fix issues, and add new features. And we feel that it will be really beneficial if we have some kind of HDF5 development tools, like toolkits for creating new filters, wall connectors, new file drivers, performance and debugging tools, for example, like Gianluca showed us today, that come with a package and well supported. So it's the whole ecosystem that helps you to develop. And of course, templates for adding new code. We have some code, for example, in HDF library that is really, can be well described as a, you do this, that, and that, and the steps. And for example, in a week, we'll have support for Boolean and a complex data type that Gert mentioned yesterday. So another thing which is really important, I believe, in this maintainability and sustainability of HDF software, it should be community friendly. And when I tell this, it's not only what is inside, but even if we have better organized HDF5 repo, if you look at our GitHub, There's so many branches. We started creating contributors documentation, like different policies, facilitating code standard compliance, but this is still a lot of work to do to make it really easy to contribute and develop bigger contributors communities, so it can be, software can be better maintained and sustained. Another issue that we're seeing with all those features, when you do development, and you really have to have very robust testing system, because you add something in the library and things start falling apart. And if that part is testing, only that part is testing, it will not work. It takes a lot of rework, etc. So there should be different tiers of testing that can be applied at different stages of development that does now do not exist. We also were hurt by, some people do fast testing, which is great. They report in a lot of issues like CVEs. They feed into HDF library and tools corrupted HDF files, and library doesn't fail gracefully, and it can produce seg faults. It can go into infinite loops. And what we see now, we really need to rework several parts of the library. Sometimes it's easy to fix, but sometimes it's really very hard to find, but this is good, and we have to have this more and make library more robust. And of course, testing on wide variety of platforms and having one place to get results and kind of process those results is incredibly important. And of course, we cannot do it without automation of reporting and initial analysis. And most dearest to my heart, a library should be performant. Many of our users cannot move to the latest, greatest releases because of performance issues that we're also addressing. So this is my initial thoughts, and I'm welcome to start discussion and your contributions. What do you think is important and what we should have on our roadmap? Thank you.
All right, the floor is open for discussion, or what you would like to see in HDF5. What are your dreams for HDF5?
And we'll talk about features tomorrow. So today, because we do not have much time, but really focus on maintainability and sustainability and how community can help.
Maybe I can start with one which I have for a long term. This remains a dream. A good documentation about the architecture and how the code is structured, so that and how to make it modular to add new features into HDF5. And the wall connectors and the pluggable VFDs make some things easier, but still the library development, or if anybody wants to contribute to that, that documentation would help a lot. And there is one hand up from Mark.
Well, since this is dreams, so we heard a little bit earlier about the bioconductor flavor of the R language binding for HDF, and there are a few others, and I use R, and so I've used several of those bindings. I make heavy use of H5Pi, which really seems to be the one dominant one, and I would like for the dominant binding for Python. And I would like to make use of one for Julia, but that community is struggling a little bit more. So, I'm not sure what the vehicle to get there would be, but to have some sort of mechanism that will help the people or the communities that use these other bindings coalesce into a single one that they can all share, so that even if the HDF group is not going to be taking up directly the support of the binding. I think that the way you have worked with the developers of H5Py has been, an excellent example. It does, I think, an exemplary job of keeping up with the current status of things. That kind of quality of binding for other communities that are interested in using HDF5 would be helpful. And Elena, since you know me, you can, I hope, appreciate the restraint with which I did not mention C++ until then.
Yes. Actually, yesterday I was reading an article about new language which is called Chef. It's C with the, I can't remember whatever Jerome will correct me. That really provides, if it's the code written, then all wrappers, it's really easy to connect to any other languages like C, C++, Python, Java, whatever. So, and our success with H5Py is really because we have a resource, allocated resource to work with the community, and this is a key. Unfortunately, our resources are limited, and it becomes difficult. Even we have connections with other communities, but having a dedicated resource helps.
There is one question in the chat from Werner Banger. Werner, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just like a broad. I'm wondering how much we can ease the configuration process. Like currently we're having this configure thing, which creates a config.h file. But I think most of the things it does could just be done automatically by using the automatic C++ features or D9 features using as include to find out if a header file exists or not. And I think that could ease the build process. Is it maybe on your trajectory to think about ways to get rid of a configure and just having a configure file which is just a minimum what the user needs to specify instead of having always effort some configure process, and CMake probably similar. So.
Yeah, actually we started moving in that direction because we have problems. You know that HDF5 software is hard to cross-compile if no way you build is kind of has different architecture, especially different data types. And I believe most of the configure work in the past was to identify those memory and file types that should be used. But in many cases, it may be pre-configured. And we started providing those files for cross-compilations on some platforms. So definitely it is not something new to us. The idea was to move away from those, static configurations, but yeah, we need to look into it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm not the best person to ask how we can approach it. So I don't know if any HDF team can comment here. And I'm putting it on my list.
Any other comments?
So everything works for everyone. I don't believe it. So please.
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, I have a request, maybe or a question. Why does the support.hdf5group.org website still exist? And why is it always the #1 hit in Google? Because I get, if I ever look for a function, I get the 1.8 documentation in this black and white, super old school looking website. And it just doesn't feel like a modern, thriving community, right? Like that's my #1 hit all the time. And I feel like if there was one tweak I could make, it would be to send somebody to the portal website. But you have to search for it.
Yeah, portal website, we had to move from it and get from a lot of work, and something happened because we had new website that I was going to talk tomorrow, and I can show now quickly, which is documentation is generated from using Doxygen, and it is hosted on Amazon. But suddenly I cannot find that it does come in my searches. Before it was coming into the searches. So we need to look into it. And I can probably show you what I'm talking about. And that was searchable and really worked well at some point. So if I share, oh, for some reason, I see black screen and, oh, I see, I'm
sharing something.
I'm sharing something wrong. Let me share just a second.
In general, though, Elena, would you say we're between iterations of a support site? Like not quite fully on the new one?
Yes, but at least it gives much better navigation. Let me just try to show this. And we need to look into it because I know that it was working. Share screen.
Gail has sent a link.
I'm not used to. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a domain HDFgroup.org, and it has, for example, just spent some time organizing our RFCs. Now it's much easier to find. There is reference manual, and there is a technical notes. So between, and some of them they are not still not here. For example, not which one? Some technical notes, right? They still point. Oh no, I don't remember which one. So we're moving from our portal to here because that was searchable, but this is work in progress, and unfortunately now it doesn't come in Google search, especially for reference menu.
So can you redirect the old pages to this automatically? I mean, that if you still own the old pages?
Some of this document, so we are going two routes. So we are moving our documentation to Doxygen, but some pages can be here static, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot, I don't know. Yep.
Yeah, Lori is saying that we can redirect later.
I don't see.
I just said in the chat, I think when we get a little bit more final on this new one, we can set up redirects at the server level to send from that old support site to this.
Yeah, but the problem is, so many people still use this one, right?
Yeah.
Or it comes, yeah, it is not supported, and we try to, so, and it is, tells you where to go, right? To support portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe better to just go directly to that and redirect it instead of just giving a link. Redirect automatically. So
Yeah.
along this direction, I have another comment which is related to the ecosystem HDFI has. There are so many tools, so many libraries built on top of HDFI. It may be better to have a single resource somewhere that we can see what is all available that is built on HDF5 so that new people don't have to reinvent the wheel several times.
And we provide some of this on our website. On the community, I believe there are there is software using HDF5. Once again, I'm not sharing, but if you go to portal and community tab, you see third party and HDF software using HDF5. And there is huge list of software packages with the application type. Is it open source, commercial, and short description? So it does exist, but once again,
it hasn't been updated for quite some time. I think right now, software ecosystem is only showing the GitHub links, and that's it.
No. You're probably looking in the wrong place. And this is another thing, right? So this is
Or software using this.
Yeah. And we periodically update this list when we learn about new software. But once again, it is not easy to find and search. It's just plain page.
Okay.
But request is noted. So yes, and we are in the process, but it will take time. HDF Group has a lot of documentation, but it's not easy to find, and we need to reorganize it. And some of it, even obsolete documentation, is really very helpful because it provides some insight. What was the thinking when the first thing was created? So it's very important for provenance of different features and decision making in the library.
Okay. Right. There is Mark Paterno was saying, does DHE have any relation to the giving up the macOS Homebrew recipe for HDF?
So I ask this because it is reasonably widely used. However, I think because of defaults in the HDF configuration, in the build configuration, the out-of-the-box Homebrew installation of HDF gives you a C++ interface in which I think few people are interested, and it does not give you the MPI connection, which I think many more people are interested. And even on my little laptop, I've got 8 cores. I'd like to be able to use them. So perhaps something as simple as encouraging third-party packagers to stress the importance of the MPI and the relative unimportance of the C++ interface, at least as long as they're incompatible in the build, would be beneficial. And certainly if you have influence over the good folk of Homebrew, whoever it is who keeps this recipe, I think that would be a particular case in which it would be a benefit. I know it builds fine on Mac OS using the same tools that Homebrew uses. It's just an inconvenience to have the Homebrew recipe not be compatible with all the other things that I would like it to be compatible with.
And this really brings a good question because we discussed historically, and Mark, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, we do have users of old C++ API. So, and this is one of our requirements from NASA to provide binaries and provide builds with the old language wrappers. So that's why by default, we build it. And we kind of alerted people who use MPI that with the configure option that C++ interfaces are not supported. So I'm not sure what is the good solution here. I think spec is really, something like spec really works well because users can install different versions. But with those platform specific, we need to find more what to do.
So the configuration, at least as I recall when last I looked, that at build time, with the right flags, you could in fact get the build system to build both the MPI interface and the C++ interface.
Right.
And the caution was just that you should not try to use the MPI features through the C++ interface. Is
right.
that correct?
Yes, there is an option like unsupported feature, disable or enable unsupported, and it will allow to configure both parallel and C++.
So unfortunately, that is a sufficiently alarming flag that just the name for it, that it scares people away from using it, even though the end result is, I think, it is a sensible thing, right? To have the single build and for the C++ users to know that they shouldn't be using the MPI because that's not going to work right. You know, that doesn't seem to me to be such a burden, but trying to convince a third-party packager, you know, I promise you, the HDF group says it's unsupported, but it really works just fine. That is not frequently a winning argument. So if there's, I don't know if it's something in documentation or the change of a name of a flag or some more official statement or easily accessible official statement about what really is safe to go to get, you know, together in such a fashion that packagers would be more willing to, you know, to turn on the switch of, you know, dash dash, not quite as dangerous as it originally sounded, or, you know, whatever the flag would be. That might be helpful just for packagers.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree that name is kind of scary. Yeah.
Right. I think we are slightly running over time.
Right.
No other major things, we can stop here.
And see you all tomorrow. Thank
See
you.
you all tomorrow with Lucas's talks.
Mhm.
Thank you all. Talk to you then.
Mhm.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.